Guys, this is really amazing. Pakistan Navy has seized drugs worth nearly $1 billion in the Arabian Sea. This is probably the highest ever interdiction that they've made on the sea, in which they have seized $972 million worth of drugs in two separate operations carried out within 48 hours. So these are the ships of Pakistan Navy. You can see this is a story shared by Al Jazeera. So the story says that Pakistan Navy, operating as part of the Saudi-led Combined Maritime Forces, has seized nearly $1 billion worth of narcotics from two vessels sailing through the Arabian Sea. The CMF, Combined Maritime Forces, the naval network overseeing the operation, said in a statement on Wednesday that last week Pakistan Navy intercepted dhows. Dhows is the sort of a small ship that carries these drugs. The one Donald Trump is also targeting. U.S. Army is also targeting in the Caribbean, coming from Venezuela, in two separate operations over 48 hours, and seized narcotics worth more than $972 million. That's a lot of money. Maybe they'll sell it on the black market themselves. You don't know, like the crew boarded the first dhow and seized more than 2 tons of crystal methamphetamine ice with an estimated street value of 822 400,000 US dollars on October 18, the CMF said. Less than 48 hours later, the crew boarded a second dhow and seized 350 kg of ice worth 140 million and 50 kg of cocaine. Wow, there was cocaine as well, worth unit 10, 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh crore. So like $10 million. The CMF did not provide further details on where the vessels originated, but added that they were identified as having no nationality. So the people who were smuggling these drugs, they had no nationality. US Central Command also tweeted about this. US Central Command congratulates CENTCOM, the Saudi-led Combined Task Force 150 of Combined Maritime Forces, for successfully seizing more than 972 million worth of narcotics over a 48-hour period. The operations were conducted in direct support of a Saudi-led Combined Task Force 150, which said the success of this focused operation highlights the importance of the multinational collaboration. It was one of the most successful narcotics seizures for CMF, said Saudi Arabian Navy's Commodore Fahad Al Joyad, commander of the CMF task force carrying out the operation. So, like this is something that I really wanted to share with you, that Pakistan Navy has seized drugs worth 972 million US dollars. That's a lot of money for drug dealers. Uh, you know, I don't know where they are going to take these drugs, but this is really good news, because the drug that they were smuggling was crystal methamphetamine ice. Ice is really troubling. It really sort of makes you addicted, and then you are unable to get rid of it, and it really affects your health. And it's inorganic, it's chemical. That's why it's really like dangerous. So if you do any drugs, don't do ice. Never do ice, never. And also there's another news, like this CBS, that White House has slapped sanctions on Russia, more sanctions on Russia. What happened? Let's see.
The White House announces sanctions on Russia's two
Can you
biggest
hear?
oil companies and condemns Moscow for refusing to end its, quote, senseless war in Ukraine. President Trump said the goal is to make all sides more willing to negotiate.
They're massive sanctions, and sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push.
So, White
Hopefully
House
he'll
has
become
slapped sanctions
reasonable,
on
and
Russia's
hopefully
two biggest
Zelensky
oil
will be
companies
reasonable too.
over the war in
And
Ukraine.
this morning, the European
Ah,
Union
Zelensky's
has also
happy.
agreed on a new raft of sanctions for Russia. CBS News foreign correspondent Remy Inocencio joins us from London with more on all of this. Good morning, Remy. What more can you tell us about these sanctions and the impact they'll have? We heard President Trump there say that hopefully it pressures Putin to bring his war to an end.
Yeah, well, that's the hope, Errol, and good morning. This is the first time in President Trump's second term that he's slapping sanctions on Russia related to its war effort in Ukraine. And the Treasury Department says that the focus is to, in their words, degrade the Kremlin's ability to raise revenue for its war machine. And that money, a lot of it at least, comes from oil sales hitting Russia's two biggest oil giants, Rosneft and Lukoil. Now, if you want to give a bit of a parallel here, the U.S.'s two biggest oil companies are ExxonMobil and Chevron together. So it would be something similar if Russia wanted to do something like that. But Trump, he expressed a lot of frustration. We heard him just now with Putin at the Oval yesterday. Here he is again.
Every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere.
Yeah,
So
Donald Trump
now
is really
these
cute, you know.
sanctions with Rosneft, its CEO is a close ally of Putin, and with the other company, Lukoil, you might have actually seen gas stations in the United States there. It's more active internationally than Rosneft,
So
and
these are
these
the two
sanctions
companies on which they have
basically
slapped sanctions.
block
Rosneft
Americans or
and
American
Patani,
entities
and the other
from
is I don't know.
dealing whatsoever with
They're
anyone
deep in
at those
Serbia, I
Russian
think.
oil majors and to any companies that actually are owned by them over 50%. Treasury
They are
Secretary
the
Scott
oil
Bessent
refineries.
encouraged allies
Yeah.
to join in. And I mean, you just mentioned it. The EU has actually done that in the past hour. Its nations, 27 of them, targeted Russia's so-called shadow
Let's see if
fleet,
Financial Times is saying
bringing
something
oil
about
and
this one.
natural gas.
Yeah, you know. Trump's Trump's Russian oil sanctions hit India and China's imports. Largest refineries took look at curbing purchases after US measures aim to impede Putin's war machine. So let's see. India and China's largest refineries are looking at curbing imports of Russian oil, cutting off a key source of funds for Vladimir Putin's war machine following Donald Trump's sharp escalation of US sanctions. Senior traders and officials said refineries, including the world's largest facility in India and state backed Chinese operators, were pausing most purchases as Trump tries to drive Putin to the negotiating table with Ukraine. India's Reliance Industries said on Thursday it would recalibrate its imports in line with government guidelines as oil prices rose more than 5% after the US measures against Russian groups Rosneft and Lukoil reverberated through global energy markets. One person familiar with the discussions added that Reliance was unlikely to take a chance that could result in punishment by the US after sanctions were announced on Wednesday night. Similarly, a person who works closely with the largest Chinese state backed oil companies and Indian refineries said they had all paused purchases following the imposition of US sanctions. Though smaller independent Chinese refiners would continue to import Russian crude. Beijing has requested that several Chinese state oil majors suspend purchase of seaborne Russian oil following US and European sanctions, according to a Chinese trader, with one of the state-owned growth. But the trader said pause may only prove to be temporary. China's foreign ministry did not immediately comment. So guys, the thing is that Donald Trump is really pushing Putin to come to the negotiating table on Ukraine so that he can bring a peace there. He has already succeeded in bringing a peace in Gaza, but last I heard, the ceasefire in Gaza has been broken. It has been violated. It was an uneasy peace. It is an uneasy peace, and Donald Trump is really hoping to bring Putin to the table as well. And I don't know if you have been following me. I shared this news as well that United States has also allowed Ukraine to use Western-made weapons, long-range weapons, to conduct strikes deep inside Russia. If that is the case, then Donald Trump is really upping the ante again against Putin. He really wants Putin to come to the negotiating table, and this is the latest because India and China were buying a lot of oil from Russia, which really helped Russia in financing its war in Ukraine because oil revenues were coming in and Putin was financing his war in Ukraine. And now, if India and China are really looking at stopping purchases of Russian oil, it means that Donald Trump's efforts are bearing fruit, his sanctions are bearing fruit, and his hard heavy handed approach might just push Putin to come to the negotiating table. Uh, let's see how it turns out, but this is not good for the global economy. As we have seen, oil prices have already jumped 5%. This is a very large increase. This is really, like gonna affect the global stock markets and especially the commodities market. And I hope this war ends. I hope this war ends. This is not good. This is not good for anybody. I hope this war ends.